medical board takes action against an area doctor for overprescribing psychotropic drugs to a 3-year-old in foster care.
It is the latest development in a disturbing case involving a little girl who was lucky to survive her time spent in the custody of Child Protective Services. Here's Randy Wallace with the exclusive Fox 26 investigation.
Here's 4-year-old Rachel Harrison before Child Protective Services took her away from her parents. Once CPS takes over, you can see the drastic changes for yourself.
And as a parent, it's very hard to deal with because your baby's in trouble and you can't do anything to help.
Watch as the bubbly little girl starts looking more like some neglected waif while under CPS's care.
Rachel was never in any way abused or neglected, except by CPS.
In numerous court hearings, CPS caseworkers would admit they had no reason to think Rachel's parents ever neglected or abused her. The only reason CPS took custody was the young parents' recreational drug use, something they admitted to and lived to regret. But ironically, Rachel would be the one hooked on drugs while under CPS's watch, including Risperdal, a drug used to treat schizophrenia and bipolar disorder that, according to the FDA, should not be given to a child under 10.
I'm 3 years old, given a psychotropic drug. There's no reason for it, none at all.
It was 2007 when CPS first entered the family's life. The state agency took Rachel into protective custody soon after her birth because her mom tested positive for marijuana. This 2007 home video shows a horrific case of diaper rash Rachel had while in foster care.
Oh my goodness. That is a bad diaper rash.
The baby's awful condition is pointed out to 2 CPS caseworkers, but neither decides to seek immediate medical attention. Even after a judge ordered the foster mom to get Rachel to a doctor ASAP, CPS failed to make sure that happened. Later, CPS admitted to making big mistakes.
You gotta throw it.
Fast forward to July 2010.
I went to the hospital to get my appendix out and tested positive for cocaine.
Did you test positive too, David?
Yes.
That was enough for CPS to take Rachel away again and spend over a year trying to terminate David and Christina's parental rights. CPS wouldn't allow the family to see Rachel for 2 months. What they say they saw was a drooling, lethargic, emaciated-looking little girl who wanted to play a very strange game.
She was also writing prescriptions, Rachel, which is not normal for, they might play doctor, but she was writing prescriptions on paper. Here, take your medicine.
The family spent months asking CPS if Rachel was on drugs.
We kept asking, but they kept denying.
You could just tell that there was a physical change between when she was with us to the time that they've had her at that point.
CPS's own policy dictates parents must be told within 24 hours about their child needing or receiving medical treatment. But these parents didn't know for 6 months until it finally came out in a court hearing.
You're completely powerless.
You're powerless against these people. They hold all the cards and they will do whatever they want.
After the judge started questioning CPS about the little girl's declining condition, CPS gave up trying to terminate the couple's parental rights and gave them their daughter back. According to court testimony, Dr. Owen Asagi is the psychiatrist who prescribed psychotropic drugs to a then 3-year-old.
He testified that he had seen Rachel for approximately 15 minutes.
According to the Texas Medical Board, Dr. Osagi prescribed clonidine to Rachel in excess of the dosing guidelines while simultaneously increasing her dose of Risperdal, then failed to properly monitor the little girl.
And there's paperwork saying she was screaming for mommy and daddy, and the easiest way to handle her acting up was to medicate her.
Osagi ignored our attempts to contact him for a response. According to an agreed order with the Texas Medical Board, Dr. Osagi must complete 24 hours of continuing medical education and pay a $5,000 administrative penalty.
I know a lot of other families and a lot of other parents who are going through the same things.
Late last year, the United States Government Accountability Office reported these disturbing findings. Texas is one of 5 states where children in foster care were prescribed psychotropic drugs 2.7 to 4.5 times more often than children who were not in foster care, with children in the Texas foster care system being the most likely to receive psychotropic drugs. CPS wouldn't discuss the Rachel Harrison case with us. According to the Texas Department of Health and Human Services, Dr. Osagie has treated 755 children in CPS foster care and continues to do so. Randy Wallace, Fox 26, investigates.
Hey, San Antonio. Well, you know, that was something that we've been trying to address to you guys as far as the psychotropics in our society and how this is a best practice and how they're doing this to children, not only in the foster care. We won that case. The judge ruled in our favor. It's children's rights and advocates for humanity. And, you know, there in Corpus Christi, the judge said that psychotropics are making members not functional for our society, meaning it's a violation that's not being acknowledged in what we're dealing with as far as and what we've said since, you know, they did this to my son and molested Mary Jane's son back in 2007. She testified with Hinojosa, and, you know, they did Senate Bill 103. All this work was done, even what we did with Van de Putte on the restraints and isolation. But then when the report comes in from the Council of State Governments, and I brought that to you a couple of years ago, that shows that San Antonio would be acknowledged as the highest rate of recidivism in the United States if they had taken our case study we did on the west side. We showed single-parent Mexican mothers' children were being taken for psychotropics. Well, now that recidivism is being led by not the Democratic Party, not the Republican Party, but the President of the United States. Let you listen to this.
Thank you very much, and today we are going to be discussing the important topic of prison reform. I want to thank Attorney General Sessions, Governor Bevin of Kentucky, Governor Brownback of Kansas, and other prison reform experts who are here. We have the best in the country. We'll be discussing a number of opportunities to improve our prison system, to better promote public safety, and to help former prisoners re-enter society as productive citizens. Very important, very big topic, become a very big topic, especially I think over the last 12 months or so. We've been focused on it very, very strongly. We support our law enforcement partners, and we're working to reduce crime and put dangerous offenders behind bars. At the same time, we want to ensure that those who enter the justice system are able to contribute to their communities after they leave prison, which is one of many very difficult subjects we're discussing having to do with our great country. The vast majority of incarcerated individuals will be released at some point and often struggle to become self-sufficient once they exit the correctional system. We have a great interest in helping them turn their lives around, get a second chance, and make our community safe. Many prisoners end up returning to crime, and they end up returning to prison. 2/3 of the 650,000 people released from prison each year are arrested again within 3 years. We can help break this vicious cycle through job training, very important, job training, mentoring, and drug addiction treatment. And you know how we're focused on drugs pouring into our country and drug addiction. It's a big problem even as we speak of this subject. We'll be very tough on crime, but we will provide a ladder of opportunity for the future. The governors with us today have pioneered reforms. They've been very, very successful, and we appreciate you being here very much. That can inspire change. Kansas improved its juvenile justice system to help make sure young offenders do not become repeat offenders. Kentucky is providing job training to inmates and helping them to obtain professional licenses upon release, and it's been very successful. It's been a great governor, I will tell you that, my friend. My administration is committed to helping former inmates become productive, law-abiding members of society. And I want to thank you all for being with us, and thank you for discussion. And maybe we'll take a couple of minutes and Governor, you might want to say something as to prison reform. You've been very successful.
Sure. No, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you truly to those of you in the media for being here and for covering this. It does matter. If you'll hear a lot from people who know far more about this than myself if you stay in here as we go around the horn. But I will say this. If you take nothing else away than this absolute fact and communicate this to people, the 95+% of everyone who is incarcerated is going to be released. The vast majority, more than 95%, will be released. What are we doing as a society, at the federal level, at a state level, at local levels? What are we doing to ensure that they have been rehabilitated and that they can be reassimilated? We're good at removing, but we need to do more than simply remove people from society. Something we're battling with in Kentucky, as are other states. I look to states like Kansas and others who have done this well, Texas and Georgia, in Oklahoma. Many are doing it well. There's no pride of ownership in any of this. We want to steal good ideas from one another. We want the best ideas to make their way forward. And I'm truly grateful to the President, to the Attorney General, and to others who are taking this seriously at the highest levels, because it will make a transformative change in America. The final point I'll say is this. The workforce in America demands this, is begging for this. There are millions of jobs that need to be filled. We have millions of people, 2 million people currently in our penal system, 95% of whom are going to come out. We need them to become a functional part of our economic society. And so that is really what we're here for today.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, sir.
Governor Brownback, would you like to say something?
Yeah. First, I want to thank you for taking this topic up. I don't know of a recent presidency that's taken the topic up in a serious way. It's one that it needs discussion, it needs focus, and I deeply appreciate you doing it. We have a Bureau of Prisons facility, Leavenworth, in our state, and they need to do these sort of programs. The biggest thing that we've gotten done that's been successful has been mentoring programs, private, person-to-person mentoring programs. We've got 7,500 matches that we've made, because most people, when they come out of prisons, they don't have many relationships that are reliable or good for them to get back on their feet. And that's cut the recidivism rate for those 7,500 in half, from 20 to under 10%. And I just think that makes sense for us to do, to help them out. And so I applaud you, and I really think it's an important topic to take up.
Well, thank you very much, Governor. Jeff, would you like to say something?
Thank you, Mr. President. I look forward to hearing from this group of people who are really a great group. Jared, I appreciate your leadership on this and pushing this. We believe that we are already spending money in the federal prison system. Frankly, we got a report late last year that the money isn't being spent well. Our new prison commissioner is committed to doing a better job on reentry programs and job training programs. And so if we do this right, I think we can make progress.
Thank you very much. Matt, would you like to say something?
Sure.
Before we go back to a private discussion.
Look, I think this is one of the issues that people from the community I spend a lot of time with, conservatives, are focused on. I also think there's people on the other side of the political spectrum that have a heart and want to make sure that people's lives can be put back together. But one thing that's interesting is when you look at this crime recidivism, it's too high. The rate is too high. People need to have a job. They need to be able to get hired. They need to feel the pride and ownership of a job. And the fact that this economy is rolling and that these regulations and taxes and everything are going in the right direction, it's giving hope to a lot of people. So that's the first step. Now we've got to do the right things on the public policy.
Well, thank you for taking this on. Thank you for making it an issue. You know, I think about your great vision for America, which is to make it great again. And I think about all that you and your team have done on tax reform and regulatory reform and coming into welfare reform. Those are all things that the state of Texas has been doing for a long time, as you know. But about 10 years ago, we decided that it was time that we really look at criminal justice reform, because America has 5% of the world's population, but we have 25% of the world's incarcerated. And when you think about 95% of those folks are all coming back out into communities, what can we do as a society to make sure that they are reintegrated at a successful rate instead of going back into prison, which 400 of 600,000 do. So in Texas, we changed our laws. We've shut 8 prisons down. We've decreased our incarceration rate by 20%. But the most important part of all of that is our crime rate is down 31% in the state of Texas. In the state of Texas, since we undertook all of these reforms, this works. And it is a beautiful, beautiful policy issue because it's bipartisan. Everyone agrees that we want those who are coming back out into our communities to have safer streets, to go back to their families, have stronger families, and be able to work in the communities where they once resided. So, amen, and we applaud you for really bringing this on.
Well,
thank you.
Very much, Brooke. I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
President, what's your current thinking on Iran, sir? Iran, what's your current thinking?
Focus. You're going to be finding out very soon. You'll be finding
Mr.
out very
President, have
soon.
you
Thank
ruled
you.
out meeting with Mueller, or is this still something you're concerned
Thank you very much.
How do you think the physical will go tomorrow? How do you think the physical will go tomorrow?
I think it's going to go very well. I'll be very surprised if it doesn't.
Can you believe it? What Native Americans have called a cultural genocide for over 500 years, the president addresses that we have to make these members functional. We have to accept this liability of what you've done here. I mean, they've had these hearings there. We've had to watch them, molest children continuously in this state with this juvenile system. We watched John Whitmire talk about how we've reduced it, and yet, we went through a reduction from 5,000 kids and being processed into this system for being truant. For being truant. That's when we started working with Project Males, because it wasn't for being truant. As far as the recidivism, these kids, for even being truant, were being put on psychotropics. And that's why we're hoping the president will meet with us on our ESP project, so we can be able to help not only the work we did for our veterans and what we identified as far as 22 veterans killing themselves, but what we want to do now with our veterans to mentor those children, even the first responders that have PTSD. We've got a lot of veterans, our first responders, and they need to be stabilized. I mean, you look at here, this is what happened in Bexar County just recently.
Yes, Jasquel Jamal Spell is still here on a $75,000 bond. We found out this morning that he confessed to this crime. Here's the 23-year-old after he was arrested yesterday by the Public Integrity Unit of the Sheriff's Office. An arrest warrant says Spell drummed up an inappropriate relationship with an inmate, a female inmate who was just 15 years old, by writing her letters. Those letters led to her being removed from her living quarters and being forced into unlawful sex acts inside of the facility. The warrant says on May 26, Spell was caught on surveillance video carrying out the same crime. The warrant goes on to say when he was contacted by a Texas juvenile investigator over the phone, Spell voluntarily confessed to the crime. He faces a charge of sexual assault of a child. The sheriff's office is trying to determine right now if there are more victims out at the same juvenile facility. We're live at the Bexar County Detention Center. Marvin Hurst, KENS 5, Eyewitness News.
And this is with children. And the Eagle Eye Stabilization Center is the future. We're going to be able to monitor them, not with cameras. Technology's gone a lot further than that. And even on the reservation, what the tribes do as far as with their Eagle Eye securities. We're going to have to divert this because these people are dangerous and they're having our lives endangered. I mean, the kid down there, I think it was in Giddings we were doing, they had a riot and Whitmire's talking about now we have more violent offenders. Now there's 22 murders in there. It's like a joke with this guy. 2010, we went to Lisa Jarrett here in San Antonio. The little boy killed his father. And as advocates for humanity on the west side, we asked her, please, y'all put him on these psychotropics in the juvenile. He kills his father. And even today, we're having, well, let me watch what happened this.
Well, Melinda Jonathan, we have learned there is a criminal and administrative investigation underway while this young man sits in the hospital 4 hours away from his parents who are here in Houston.
As a mother, Shalandra Royston will be the first to admit her 17-year-old son, Roy Lewis Jr., has had some serious disciplinary issues in his life.
Like he had a bad attitude, an anger problem, and in school he wasn't doing well.
Lewis has spent the last 5 years in and out of boot camp and juvenile detention centers here in Texas. But once he was released in 2014, his father learned he was in a gang. Royston says that's when Lewis's father asked a judge judge to send him to a juvenile lockup to keep him alive.
His dad had fear for his son that he didn't want to see him out on the street. He'd rather see him in a facility where no harm can happen to him.
Royston says her son was sent to Gainesville State School for Juvenile Delinquents. Once again, it was something Lewis's dad asked for to keep him out of the gangs in Houston. It's a decision they're now regretting.
I regret it. I do. Because I was really thinking that they would help me and helping me get my son better.
That's because Lewis is now hospitalized with what his parents say is a broken neck. Royston says this is after he was restrained by security officers at Gainesville State School over a disciplinary issue. Lewis is being held at Denton Regional Medical Center, and in these photos you'll see his father at his side, a father who thought this was the correct course of action to save his son from gangs.
As much as I look at the picture in my phone of my son laying in that bed, it hurt. It hurt me so bad.
We reached out to the Texas Juvenile Justice System, which oversees Gainesville, and we're told they can't talk about cases because of confidentiality. But a spokesperson says if it did happen, there would be a criminal and administrative investigation, and they would assist the parents as much as possible.
Can they break his neck? I mean, and we got these people in the session, this budget hearing. I was there December 11th, 2017. They're having a hearing. I'm listening to these people spend all this money. This is the biannual budget. I don't know if you people know about this, but they spent $681 million back in 2007. There was 5,000 kids. Today, Whitmire says it's decreased by 80%. And it's decreased by 80%. Now we have 1,000 kids. But yet we're spending $681 million to keep you safe. This is our tax dollars to keep us safe. This is a best practice, but it was identified by the judge as abuse, neglect of Texas children. The governor said in Texas, it's our duty to protect Texas children, especially under the care umbrella. Where are all these people not upholding their duty? If this man is going to say that they've decreased it, we want a $681 million for 1,000 kids to cost us $161,000 a year. What kind of education could it? They asked for this. Let me listen to this.
Caption Close Austin. 4 Texas civil rights and youth justice reform groups called Thursday for the state to close all of its remaining juvenile justice lockups and replacing them with community-based treatment and rehabilitation centers. The move by the American Civil Liberties Union of Texas, Texans Care for Children, Texas Appleseed, and the Texas Criminal Justice Coalition comes as confirmed allegations of sexual abuse of incarcerated teenagers at the Gainesville State School have sparked renewed demands by legislative leaders to stop the criminal misconduct. If adopted, the recommendations would take the Texas Juvenile Justice Department out of the business of incarcerating youths in remote state-run lockups for the first time in years. Texas juvenile justice system grew from a network of orphanages and work farms into training centers that gradually became secure facilities across the state. While state officials offered no immediate comment, legislative leaders have moved in recent weeks to come up with a new solution to the growing problems in the state centers. The growing problems in Texas juvenile justice system, revealed weeks ago in reports by the Houston Chronicle and other media, come a decade after a sex abuse scandal triggered a top-to-bottom overhaul of Texas youth corrections system, including closure of nearly half of the state-run centers and the diversion of more than 3/4 of the youths to local programs. Recidivism remains high in the state-run lockups, all located in remote areas, and is much lower in the county programs where youths remain closer to their home where they can participate in rehabilitation and treatment programs. Thursday's call by the groups came in a letter to Lieutenant Gov. Dan Patrick and House Speaker Joe Straus. The groups called for the state Senate and House to create a joint legislative committee to come up with solutions that keeps youth safe, supported, and near their home communities. House and Senate leaders for Sikhs have been discussing much the same goal since the reports of new sex abuse issues surfaced. While Texas downsized its system of state-run LUCs significantly after the most recent scandal, its systemic problems date back to the 1970s when the state faced federal court action over confirmed civil rights violations and violent conditions in the state system. This is the third time in the last 10 years that we've seen a crisis emerge in TJJD's facilities, Deborah Fowler, executive director for Texas Appleseed, said in a statement. This highlights what experts have been telling us for years, and what Texas-based research confirms: large facilities in remote areas cause more harm than good. A 2015 report by the Council of State Governments Justice Center revealed that youth who are committed to TJJD facilities are 21% more likely to be rearrested, and 3 times more likely to commit a felony when they do reoffend, than those who are placed under supervision closer to home. Urgent need for reform. The need for real reform is urgent, said Sharon Watkins Jones, Director of Political Strategies for the ACLU of Texas, echoing sentiments from Lindsay Linder, policy attorney for the Texas Criminal Justice Coalition, who called for a solution that demonstrates our state's responsibility to ensure a safe and rehabilitative environment for all kids.
It's time. We're not going to say this is an opioid crisis. If you use psychotropic drugs, you need to be held accountable for this. So it's time for this to end. This is not keeping us safe. We've created to where there's 91 kids committing suicide. I think that's what the report said. 91 kids today. I went through 22 veterans killing themselves when I had tried to bring in the ESP project. Native Americans are healing veterans today with CBD oil, but we have a housing project. The ESP project is earth and solar poly that I took to the mayor of the city, because this is Military City, USA, and I am a veteran. I'm also a Native American. We manufacture the machines that make earth and block here in San Antonio on the east side, but none of the black people wanted to hear from the natives to start healing our children or to bring what the president is saying. You know, Poison Ivy, I'm not even going to call her Mayor Taylor, because she's not. She wasn't. She brought poison to our city. She promoted gang violence. And if this little, this newcomer here, this one that seems to be, as far as this task force they created, let you listen to this.
At noon, the opioid epidemic is affecting millions of people across the country, including right here in San Antonio.
Now, while the crisis here might not be as bad as other areas, it is a serious issue that city and county leaders are trying to tackle before it gets worse. Jesse DeGuiala joins us now with how Bexar County and San Antonio plans to handle this epidemic.
In fact, just today, they had their first meeting. The city, county, and university health system have created a joint opioid task force to find solutions to this crisis. According to the CDC, 91 people die each day from opioid overdose. That's more than car crashes and shootings combined. And as I said, the task force today held its first meeting. Some of the objectives they will be working on include increasing the use of naloxone or Narcan with first responders like police, EMS, and firefighters. They also want to work with doctors, dentists, and pharmacists who prescribe these painkillers so they can be more aware of who they're writing prescriptions for. And they're educating the community about safe storage and disposal of opioids with an emphasis on teens who might not think the issue is that serious.
First, where we start is an education effort for our entire community. I think one positive element of what's happened here today is that we're raising the level of attention on what has become a national crisis.
One of the other things that the Joint Opioid Task Force will work on to accomplish making treatment services more accessible and letting people know there is help. Right now, our community leads the state in infant opioid withdrawal and has the third highest per capita rate of overdose deaths in Texas. This epidemic is something we will continue to raise awareness about. Next month, we'll be airing a special program that dives deeper into opioid addiction.
That's not the truth. And we have the reports. We were there in Washington. Senator Cory Booker did the Mercy Act, Senate Bill 329. We were there when John Cornyn did his bill with Sheriff Parmelo. It turns around 4 suicides. 400 insane inmates is going to cost us $300 million. It was on the WAI. You go online. This is their process, and we're going to continue letting them make this violence in our city. It's not going to be a very safe society. So if we don't look at our project, which is what we're asking the president to come to San Antonio and meet with the Native Americans, to where our vision is like Texas Appleseed, the ACLU, Texas Criminal Justice Coalition, Texas Families of Incarcerated Youth are asking you to please end this psychotropic use against children. This is America's future. So join us in our petition. Go online on YouTube, the ESP Project, Building America's Future. Write to the president, tell him to meet with the Native Americans.
Yo sé que un día volverá.